Good morning. I'm Chris Cadell, the 2021 president of AACE. With me is Jim Krebs, the 21-22 president, and Deb Lawley, our CEO Executive Director. Thank you for joining us for the AACE annual meeting. We're talking to you today from Boston, the site of the Boston retreat that we're having over the next few days, where we're doing a deep dive into a particular topic in lieu of the in-person conference and expo. We had our virtual conference and expo this last week, and if you were able to attend that, thank you, and I hope you found it as much of a great success as I did. I want to say thank you to all of our staff, volunteers, and the presenters that put their time and effort into making it the success that it was. When I took office a year ago, I don't know that we really realized the prolonged impacts that the pandemic would have on our society and on this association. We were uncertain what it was really going to mean, but I'm proud to say we've been able to continue our work as an association over the past year and still provide the value to the members that they come to expect from AACE. And we were uncertain of what this may mean for our membership numbers, but as of May of last year, we'd had a 1% growth in membership over the year before, and then as of this past month, we've had another 3% growth in membership. So thankfully, those that renewed and new members recognize the value that AACE continues to provide to all of us. Two other events happened this year that I want to touch on. One is we were able to welcome Deb Lawley to our association, who joined us as the CEO. She is based in Boston, where we are, her hometown, and she has been a great addition to the association. I think she spent a lot of time up front getting to know people, the staff, and all the volunteers, and everyone I've talked to over the past year has been very appreciative of what she has brought to the table, and I think she's been a great addition to the team. We also took a move this past year to transition our entire office to virtual. So all of our staff are now working remotely and through virtual means, yet we have not skipped a beat in terms of delivering of services to our members. In fact, it's actually provided us an opportunity to kind of look at how we provided those services and our processes and streamline some things to really make us more efficient. And I think everyone that we've talked to have been happy with how this has worked. All the staff have enjoyed the new structure, and it really provides us opportunities moving forward with the future addition of staff that we're not going to be limited by location in terms of finding people that can be the best fit for our association. From a strategic standpoint, we worked more on our strategic initiatives, including the restructuring, collaboration, and marketing. And with the strategic initiative for restructuring, we completed the first phase, or will be finalizing everything in the next week when we have a board meeting this coming Wednesday, to update all of our governance documents. The membership voted to approve the new bylaws this spring, which we're very thankful for, and we've been updating the organization manual, and we're updating the articles of incorporation to really provide us the flexibility and opportunities to better evolve to meet our member needs and how we engage with them. We held a couple workshops looking at our engagement model, and just starting that, and more will be coming in the years to come. We also worked on collaborations. We have been doing internal collaborations between the technical, the education, and the certification boards, which have really helped align them in terms of path forward to get all of our technical education and certification products in sync with each other. We created a global agreement with the Project Controls Expo that's going to provide both organizations an opportunity to share with each other and gain greater visibility for AACE. We executed a contract with an external firm to help develop online educational products that we'll be able to use around the world for members to help them with their career development. And we also are in talks with other organizations about external collaborations that will help us both technically and increase our visibility in the industry. So I want to thank everyone for their support, and I will turn it over to Deb.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to comment on how remarkable and strange and lovely it is to be in person with people I work with. I joined the organization last summer. As Chris said, it's been almost a year, and I finally get to meet people that I work with, all vaccinated, hence we're within 6 feet of each other. So to Chris's point, last summer when I joined the organization, an important thing for me when I was interviewing with associations was to be not just a culture fit for the organization, but a culture contributor. And I really think over this past year, that's come to fruition. I feel like that I'm in the right place at the right time with this organization. There's a lot of change going on, initiated in some part by COVID, but it was long in place before COVID was a reality. And one of the first things, my first priority when I started, was to talk to the staff and look at our office space. And we had a lease that just happened to be up in December of last year, and it was pretty fortuitous that COVID punctuated a new way for us to work as an office, and the staff had already been a well-oiled machine and working together cohesively and productively in a remote environment before I started. So we made that move a permanent move, and there were logistical changes and there were cultural changes that really needed to be paid attention to, and I think we have done both successfully, and that is all due to the 13 staff that I have the privilege of working with. And we are a very productive group in a remote environment. And as Chris said, it gives us opportunity to work nationally and worldwide as we potentially grow and expand. So a few things about the association, the current state of the association. Membership and certification have both been steady despite the massive disruption of COVID. As Chris said, membership growth as of the end of May is up 3%. And as Jim will speak to in a few minutes, we have a membership recruitment initiative in the later part of this year related to marketing. And we are very optimistic of growing membership even further beyond that. And a big focus for us is engaging our members and being inclusive. The staff and I have been talking a lot more since I joined last summer about DEI initiatives and how that relates to our membership, particularly in the international realm. So about 74% of our members are in North America, the rest are international. And how can we do a better job at embracing our international membership, both through sections and through other initiatives. Related to the conference this year, I would say it's been a successful conference, although once again, different. Last year was completely virtual. This year we have a hybrid component in terms of this Boston retreat where we're all at right now. And the staff and I will regroup and do a post-mortem after both are complete to really look at how we can make San Antonio that much better next year. There's a lot of excitement already to participate in person again, but it won't look like 2019. So I see that as a good thing too. So how can we use what we've learned these past 2 years to make next year's meeting even bigger and better and engage even more of our membership? The board approved a balanced budget at the end of 2020 for 2021, and I'm happy to say that the forecast is we're on track and overall have a positive variance projected for the end of this year. And in a little bit of fun news, it is very likely that we will publish our 100th recommended practice this summer. And considering that between our inception in 1956 through 1996, we only had a total of 7 RPs, this is a major milestone for our association. Over the years, 455 people have contributed to these RPs, and plans are underway to figure out how to best celebrate and appreciate those volunteers and that effort that has contributed to the cornerstone of our association in the technical content and knowledge. And I'm going to turn that over to Jim to talk a little bit more about our strategic plan for the year ahead and moving forward in the year ahead as we celebrate 65 years as an association this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. At the risk of repeating just a little bit, first, on a personal note, I'd like to thank Chris for his year of mentorship, and looking forward to next year and hope I can serve the association as well as Chris did and do as good a job for Shoshana following me in the same way Chris did. So thank you, Chris, for that.
You're welcome.
And I also want to echo Chris's sentiment to thank the headquarters staff and Deb for persevering through really 2 or 3 different things this year that each of which was really a groundswell. The change of the office environment, a new executive director, CEO, and then put that all on top of the pandemic and all of the changes and pivoting and quick reaction that the staff had to do across the board. Again, I just, I've known the staff a long time, always had the greatest respect, and I'll tell you, 2020 did nothing but reinforce and strengthen that respect I have for our great headquarters staff. Again, as Chris said, 2020, from a board of directors standpoint, was really what I like to call sort of back of the house. We really worked hard on restructuring the organization. We looked at those bylaws. I know a lot of people put a lot of hours, blood, sweat, and tears into those bylaws. We tried very hard, and I think we succeeded in preserving some of those key things and keeping those in the bylaws that make the association strong, making sure the technical or associate boards are all protected in those bylaws. But then I think we've also streamlined some of the operational things so that hopefully the organization can be a little more nimble and a little more focused on the changes in the world. And as Deb alluded to, that leads to sort of the 3 strategic initiatives that we really want to focus on coming up in the next organizational year. And in the greatest sense, they're all around sort of marketing the association, membership engagement, and making sure we're serving those members. So first and foremost, we've got some outside help, and we've got a lot of the good minds in the association working on the concept of local engagement and the sections. What does that mean? Does the model that we've had in the past work? And that's great. Are there ways that we can look at helping those sections and get a little more creative as we move into the future? So on that local level, we're supporting those members and providing that mission that we all work so hard to do. And then secondly is a marketing initiative. And again, we have task force and teams internally, as well as getting some outside help to make sure that we're marketing AACE and all of those great things that I'm sure the folks right on this video conference know about, but make sure that as I've heard over the years in my involvement with the board, that we're not the best kept secret in the industry anymore, and that we get that out there and try and make sure that the great name of AACE is out there. And then generally around membership engagement, right? Are we providing the service and what people need in 2021 and in the future in our profession? So as I said, a lot of good things happened in what I refer to as back of the house in 2020, 2021. But going forward, we're hoping to start putting those things into motion and getting out there and really trying to grow and strengthen the association for the membership. And to that end, in the restructuring, we developed 3 sort of modified or new positions on the board that we're referring to as directors at large. So they don't come into the board with a prescribed necessarily function. So that allows the board of directors to basically task those individuals as a team and focus on those things that we think are needed at this time. So the 3 members that we've got as coming in as our directors at large are all very energetic, international in nature, and we're real excited about that. So with that, I think we're going to turn it over to the group to see if there's any questions.
So if you have any questions, feel free to answer them or pose them in the Q&A section of the webinar, or you can post it in the chat. Either way, we'll see it and address it.
So in terms of how the someone asked the question of how the directors at large were selected.
Right.
Going forward, they will be elected through the normal process that other officers are elected. But given that we had this transition, the new bylaws were voted on at the same time that we elected members per the old board. We didn't have members identified as candidates for an election for the director at large position, because if the bylaws had not been approved, then that would not have been needed. So what we have done at this point is, excuse me, we have selected one of the individuals who was on the board, and that position was done away with the new bylaws. That person will stay on for another year in the as a director at large, and then we have 2 other people who have been very active in the association. One a former board member who are being appointed for an initial term, and then going forward, they will be part of the normal electoral process. But we were just filling those vacancies for now.
And Phil has a question related to local section support, if we can elaborate on what that initiative means, if there are any specifics. So far this year, we have engaged an outside consultant who actually specializes in component relations and chapter supported associations. And she has been doing a deep dive into all things AACE for the past couple of months. And we held a workshop with her and the board of directors in May to talk a little bit more at a high level, our strategic initiatives related to sections and how and why they're so important to the organization. From here is where we will get specific. So after this meeting, we're going to put together a diverse task force of membership from a good cross-section of our members to work together over the next 6 to 9 months or so on really rolling up our sleeves in looking at data and our data that we have, and to figure out how we can better support sections. So we have no specifics on what's to come. Those specifics will come from the members themselves and what comes out of those conversations. And we're hopeful that at the end of that process that's facilitated by this consultant, a report or recommendation will go back to the board of directors, who will not be on this task force intentionally. We want to get into the sections and those thoughts and opinions to report back to the board on where we think the organization should go in terms of how resources, staff could better support sections, and how we can better help those volunteers at the section level get to why they exist, which is member engagement. Does that answer that question?
So the question, I'll grab the next one. Simple question, straightforward question is, who are those directors at large? I apologize, didn't mean to be clandestine. So Cindy Hands was the VP that had additional time left in her term. She will be one of the directors at large. Hannah Schumacher, very active member, long record in associate boards and active membership at the associate level, will be the second. And Hussein El Omani, who also a very active member overseas and has served on the board of directors, will be the third director.
I didn't give their names before just because they have not been formally approved by the board of directors yet. So
which will happen on Wednesday.
Which will happen on Wednesday.
So Thomas has a question around sections. What about almost silent local sections to revitalize it, a round of it, and request for volunteers to take over these sections is foreseen. Once again, that's an important part of looking at sections over the rest of this year, is how we can help those silent, inactive, not as engaged sections with very few members, and how we can better revitalize and or roll them into a bigger fold somewhere. We don't know what that'll look like yet, so it's very hard to answer any specific questions over what we're going to do yet until we know more.
I think one of the things we had tried to do with the new bylaws was provide the association with some flexibility so that it doesn't necessarily have to be one approach fits everywhere. Some countries, the current section model has got challenges in other parts of the world depending on local government regulations and things like that. So we were trying to provide more flexibility of maybe what it looks like in Latin America or in Asia may look a little different than elsewhere depending on how this moves forward.
Right. Just one other thought, Chris. I was fortunate to be asked to present a paper at a number of different sections over the past year, and been very, over my career at AACE, I've been very active in some smaller sections in the Midwest of the United States. But one thing I noticed in the presentations this year is that, obviously by necessity, every section has gone either virtual or hybrid. And I found it very interesting that there were members from all around the world that were sitting in on various section meetings because that section meeting was communicated, and apparently the topic was of interest to those folks that wanted to connect. So although I am a big believer in the local section model, and we're going to do everything we can to preserve that, I think the idea that we're going to become more global sort of by default is going to be part of that. And again, it doesn't answer the specifics, but it's just an observation I had that quite frankly, I found really invigorating over the past year.
And one of the things Deb and the staff did this past year was set up a community calendar on the website, so all the sections can post their meetings on this calendar. So anyone from anywhere could participate in those if it had a virtual component, which most of them are at this point.
So we have another question from India related to membership dues and potentially restructuring those according to the membership fees in different regions or countries of the world, and structuring fees differently depending on the country and their economic situation. From my understanding, that's been an ongoing question at AACE for quite some time. And actually, it's one thing that so there's going to be a newly established membership advisory committee with the bylaws updates and the new organization manual, which is our new policy and procedure manual. And they're going to be tasked with a bunch of different questions around membership engagement. And one of them certainly is related to participation, and are we hindering potential members to participate related to our dues? And answering that question and having a better look at that. So it's one of many questions that we'll be looking at in the year ahead, and is a high priority, but it's something that has been talked about for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The community calendar is live, Phil. It's on our website. If you go to the communities button up the top, and from there, there's a upcoming events tab, or on our on our current main website, I believe it's under events and upcoming events. And any section can submit this a form. Any section can submit a form with an upcoming meeting, and we'll get that posted to the website. Are there term limits for members of the tech board?
I don't have an answer for that.
Under the new bylaws and the new organization manual, the associate boards are going to determine their involvement on the board of directors and rewrite their charters.
Okay. So there was a question or comment around lack of cultural engagement at the virtual conference last week. Even the wine sipping chat with Chris Cadell that you did last year was nice and helpful, and we did not have that this year. Was that a conscious decision because AACE was going to hold a smaller technical focus meeting in Boston? So the general conference was depleted of this need.
I think the general feedback was they were not necessarily well attended this past year. So there seemed to be limited, not a complete lack of, but limited interest in those sessions. So we focused more on having the technical presentations up for everyone.
Question from Marvin, is there still a headquarters location with staff working remotely? Nope, there is no physical office space anymore. The office was in West Virginia. Most of our staff, except for me, are still in the West Virginia, Southern Pennsylvania area. We are certainly not the first organization, never mind association, to be an entirely virtual office. With 14 of us, it's a little bit more easier to do as opposed to several hundred-person organization. But we have a mailbox that we check for physical mail, but even that has been diminishing. It's amazing once you start poking under the rocks and seeing where you can improve processes, how many things can be done electronically and virtually without a need for physical space anymore. Although we do have a storage unit in West Virginia that's got some skeletons in it, I'm sure, and we'll have to go through at some point. But no, that's a long-winded way of saying no, we have no physical office anymore. Any other questions?
Anything into the chat?
Nope.
Don't be shy.
I'll just leave it open for another minute. If anyone has another question, please feel free to ask or comment. Any closing words?
So I would just say this Wednesday afternoon at the close of the Boston retreat, we do have a last meeting from our outgoing board and board meeting for the incoming board of directors. So at that point, we will officially ratify the new bylaws and the new or the updated organization manual, which will continue to be ongoing, and the articles of incorporation will be approved, so updates to that. So all of this will become official at that point. So appreciate everyone's participation over this past year in the town hall meetings and Q&A sessions that we held to talk about the revisions to the bylaws. I think it was very helpful to get us to a really good spot. So.
Just two final questions that popped in. We are not working on an annual report this year, but actually that has been on my to-do list to reinvigorate here to do an annual report, but it is not being done this year. We did them in the past from the documents I've looked through, but we haven't done one in quite some time.
I haven't seen one in a long time.
It's been a long time, yeah. Mm-hmm. And Edward had a question around, do you anticipate or already realize any changes in operating expenses? I'm assuming that's in relation to the going to a virtual office. And yes, there's certainly a cost savings related to not having to pay rent in a physical office anymore. There are other costs that have been incurred related to, moving files offsite or technology storage, but really far less significant than we potentially thought. And I give all that credit to our staff who really looked into various options for file servers and cloud storage and those sorts of things to really save us additional money. So yes, there are definitely operating expenses that have been saved from moving virtually.
Yes, Marvin, time does fly.
All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, and looking forward to the year ahead with you all and meeting more of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.